So if you are listening to this and you're leading a team where you are a single agent, you are the CEO boss of your business. And sometimes you have to look in the mirror. You have to look in the mirror and say to the number one employee, which is you, am I getting the job done? Am I settling for mediocrity? Why am I doing that? Well, how did I get here? And evaluate and make a change.
Hello and welcome to episode 43 of the Life Insurance Academy podcast. I'm your host, Austin Lopes-Libero, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Chris Ball and Roger Short. The LIA podcast takes you into the conversations of top producing life insurance agents so that you can level up your business. For episode notes and resources, and to be the first to know about new shows and announcements, visit liapodcast.org/subscribe and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Life Insure Acad. Welcome to today's show. We have an incredible interview that Chris and Roger were able to do with two amazing, successful guys out of Texas. Now, there's so many takeaways packed into this episode, and we're so excited to share it with you. Just a heads up, though, before we get started, there is some language in this episode. All right, let's get to it.
Guys, we've got a very special show lined up. We know that many of our listeners are running their business with little experience or training. That's how I started, and they're frustrated because they're not seeing the results that they were hoping for. If this is you and you are listening today, you are in for a treat on today's podcast. Our guests have launched, scaled, and sold companies for hundreds of millions of dollars. Roger, I'm talking like Scrooge McDuck money here, like diving in the vault, swimming in the money. That's what they've done.
Jumping on the bed, rolling around in it kind of money.
Yeah. And between them, they've been featured on TED Talks, CNBC, Forbes, and Bloomberg. They're both authors of several books and also owners of, what a great name, Burn the Ships, a wildly successful business consulting business, and a podcast of the same name. Welcome to the show today, Matt Manero and Judge Graham.
Thanks for
being here.
For our listeners, guys, can you share a little bit about Burn the Ships?
Look, Judge and I came together through some mutual friends, and we were each doing a unique presentation. His presentation was called Attack and Conquer, and mine was called The Torch. And we blended the two presentations together and created a program called Burn the Ships. And it's a 1.5 day long boot camp, always in Dallas, Texas. We bring in entrepreneurs of all shapes and sizes to learn what Judge and I refer to as the language of business, the structural roadmap on how to build any business successfully. And I have a successful equipment finance company. We'll do $180 million this year. Judge has had a tremendous career in the digital marketing space with 2 very large exits. And, we are 2 grassroots guys that want to help business owners who are saying to themselves, I've had the pain, now where's the gain, right? I've been doing this time. It was supposed to pan out differently. We were supposed to be further along than we are. We're still dealing with cultural issues and chaos in our organization and an inability to present ourselves to the marketplace properly. And Judge and I built out the structural roadmap to teach anyone how they can have success too. And we're very blessed. We've had now 250 people come through the program. We've had some unbelievable success stories of people who, came to the program with 0 in sales and are doing 250 million in sales. We've had one gentleman who had a big exit, never even thought about exiting until he came to Burn the Ship. And then we've had the feedback that you guys gave us this morning, which is, it just gave you the opportunity to look at your business differently and then hopefully go back and structurally make some fundamental that you will guaranteed see results real quick. So it's burntheships.com for anybody who wants to learn more about it. We'd love to have you come and see us in Dallas.
Some of our takeaways that we got from there, Judge, that just, screamed to us as we were on the plane on the way back, flying back from this event. We were brainstorming. We kind of follow the pattern. Like we took the takeaways. We worked in the airport. We worked on the plane. I mean, we were doing it, right? Matt is going, yes, people listen to us. It's so yes, yeah, it was good stuff. But the two things that were screaming at us, and for agents and agency builders and managers that are listening right now to our podcast, and I know typically we're talking about how to close a sale or how to build value. Today's podcast is different. This is about how to grow and scale your business. One of the things that we wanted to kind of dial in on for our listeners today is that really stood out was the deadly 7 business habits. And since we've heard about it and started, internalizing it, it has grown to be an important part of our communication. And to be fair, we didn't even realize we were doing some of these bad habits. We didn't even realize we were doing them. Guys, can you share these deadly habits with our listeners and why they're so important?
So let me frame that, and then Matt does a much better job going over them than I do. But the big takeaway of the deadly 7, why they exist, and this is a fundamental component to success and scale in business, is, dude, you've got to compress time and remove noise. Okay. When you understand how to compress time, remove noise, which creates momentum, you're capable, your team's capable, your revenue's capable, your company is capable of achieving much more than you thought was possible. Okay. The deadly 7 are things that are anti-compressing time, anti-creating culture, anti-creating momentum, anti-alignment. And they're so prevalent, and they're riddled through companies. I don't care if it's 10 people or it's 100 million people. If the listeners can take away 3 of these 7 and go, oh, I'm actually doing that, and change it, you're going to see fundamental shifts in your organization. Quickly. Yeah.
So the first, and by the way, this is the verbiage that we use in the 7 deadlies. So the first is what we call talking and bullshit. And the evidence that your organization is talking and bullshit is when you're having sugar-coated conversations and there is a failure to deliver bad news. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. Nobody wants to be perceived as as for lack of a better term, the a-hole. And so you just end up, talking in niceties. And the solve of that is that the organization embraces transparency. The truth is okay, even if it's ugly. It's not accusatory. It's not, blaming. It's just, and great organizations embrace transparency. The second one is what we refer to as living in quicksand. And an evidence of this happening in your organization is people have unclear ownership and empowerment and roles, right? It's, well, what do you do for the company? Well, I kind of do a little accounting, and I'm also in charge of sales. In fact, you guys were at the event where one of the groups of the attendees went through, and the first 3 guys all said they were in sales. And Judge and I looked at each other like, oh boy, who's in charge of sales? Because I just heard 3 people say they were in charge of sales. Right? And that's the evidence of the organization has unclear roles.
Man, let me throw an example. You living in quicksand is you call a meeting with way too many people. There's no agenda. That's a whole separate podcast, right? There's no structure. There's no ownership. And the boss comes in, or the manager, and he or she's barking orders, and he's just spewing out shit, and everybody's just shaking their head. And then the meeting is over. The manager thinks he or she has done a good job communicating what is in the head needs to get accomplished. And everybody turns to the left and right and don't even ask questions. And nobody knows who's supposed to do what, who's accountable. And they're just in quicksand, slowly dying until they miss the deadline. They have the meeting again, and he or she yells at them that they missed it, and they've missed 3 weeks, and then they have to talk about it again. That's living in quicksand.
How would we dial that in, Chris, for the individual agent? Are they having these conversations of BS with their spouse about what they're supposed to be doing and what they're not doing, and then having these nicety conversations? They're calling They're calling it executive meeting. They have 2 agents.
Yeah.
They're getting rolling, and it's the same concept for the individual agent and then the agency manager.
Right.
And by the way, Judge, I've been there and I've been in the meeting and I've been the guy barking the orders and everyone's in quicksand. And we got out of the meeting. I'm like, that was a good meeting. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, why didn't anything get done? So guilty.
Absolutely.
Guilty.
Bad meeting.
Sure.
I would say for individual agents, this is a very clear one as far as talking in the BS. We have agents who sit in homes, who have conversations with clients. And I think this goes back to episode 29 with Susan Scott about having a fierce conversation and being able to address the need and hold people accountable to the need in their life. And as far as an agency owner, having these conversations with agents, it is tough to say, it shouldn't be tough to say, the reason you're not making money is because you're lazy. Like, you need to go to work. The reason you're not making money is because you don't have these tough conversations, and holding people accountable to their why and what they're trying to accomplish, or what your team as a whole is trying to accomplish. This living in quicksand piece, very clear about setting goals and moving towards action. I see agents on a regular basis live in quicksand. And the great thing you guys are talking about here is these are deadly business habits. And when we say deadly, it means you ain't making no money.
Yeah. And you're creating organizational chaos, which has to be removed in an effort to be able to scale with speed. Let's go to the third one, guys, if it's okay with you, because it's my favorite.
Okay.
And without getting too technical, but if you guys remember Burn the Ships, the very first thing we start with is the personality test and then the leadership score. And that's why this one becomes so structurally important. It's the need for certainty. And if we are doing personality tests in our organization, we begin to see what the DNA traits of our people are. And that's why we can head off the need for certainty. So if someone has a personality trait that in the test that we use, the predictive index, that has a very high D, attention to detail, they have to dot the I's and cross the T's, they fall victim for the need for certainty. Unless it's perfect, I can't move forward on it. And so how do you know that there's a need for certainty? And I love the example, as you guys will remember from Burn the Ships, of what happens in Texas when a cow eats the hay. The cow just chews and chews and chews, and it turns into what we call cud, and cud just ends up in the gum area, and the cows just start to blow out their cheek because they can't decide, should I swallow this or should I spit it out? So they do nothing and they just keep chewing on it. And if you relate that into your organization, how many ideas are still being chewed on and thought about and discussed that should have been acted on in the moment, in the first meeting, at what we refer to as 70% accuracy. Judge and I believe that if you can make decisions at 70% accuracy, you can live with the 30% that you were slightly off on. The action is the key component to speed. And when ideas aren't getting implemented quickly, it's a requirement for your people to be perfect or have certainty that it's going to work. And that is not a positive trait of an organization.
Yeah, I can add. I mean, Matt and I have a couple businesses that we've invested in together. And Matt, jump in if you feel differently. But if one of those operators comes to us, or a key employee or team member, and has an idea, as long as it's somewhat fleshed out, dude, just roll with it. Go sell it. Go make it happen. Go make the momentum. And giving them that ability. Now, they can't, it has to be fleshed out, but we care more about the action of doing it and completing it and testing it to see if it works versus sitting on it and contemplating and waiting for an executive committee. And you'll just never scale. It'll just never happen.
Can I ask you guys a question to show, like, in these qualities and the skills needed for this need for certainty, freedom to fail is a part of that. When you say that, what happens? Like, you have someone who has a great idea and they want to implement something, they go out and try it. What happens after that?
So it needs to be tied back to, in my opinion, it needs to be tied back to core values, right? Mm-hmm. So I can give you an example. In one of my companies, Fearless was a core value. when fearless is a core value, freedom to fail becomes synonymous, right? It's just part of it, right? If you're going to be fearless, there's going to be failures, right? So you have to establish a culture and an organization to where your people can think, they can be creative, they can be innovative, and they're not scared to take risk, right? And you have to instill that ability and that thinking and don't punish them when they're 30% wrong. So what's your tolerance, right? Matt and I believe it's, we can deal with a 30% fail rate, right? If the 70% we're betting on that it's fleshed out and it works, go for it. That's it. But most business owners are so freaking scared that it has to be right and they have to make every decision and it has to be totally thought through and they need multiple analysis paralysis, that our organizations are leapfrogging them because we've made 15 to 20 decisions ahead of their one, and even the one they're making may be wrong.
I love this for individual agents who are out there and they're trying to figure out if they have what it takes. Like, so many agents feel like they have to do everything perfect before they go see clients, and their presentation has to be perfect. Their close has to be perfect. But that issue of trusting a process and failing it teaches you stuff. You learn.
things. That is a part of the process. If you don't go out and fail at some crap, you don't know what doesn't work and what does work, and you got to figure out how to do that. Interestingly, this morning, and I kind of outlined, why we're not actually in studio doing this podcast this morning. And I texted Austin and I said, do we have the audio correct? Are we going to be able to pull this off? And he says, we're good. And then his next text was 70%.
Let me just phrase
and I knew what that meant because I'm like, you're right, 70%. Let's roll.
Let me just frame that and I'll shut up. That's amazing that you did that. So let's play this out if you didn't do that. Okay. You guys got a lot of things. You're not in the studio. You decide collectively as an organization, we have to wait until we feel more comfortable and do it in studio. Matt and I are pretty busy guys. You may not have gotten this podcast rescheduled for a month or 2 months. We could have lost momentum. Like, it's just, dude, you got to go, right? You're creating that momentum. And so I commend you guys on doing it. Like, business isn't perfect. Shit is going to up. You must adjust and pivot, or just prepare never to win.
It's right. I can't say it resoundingly loud enough to agency owners and agents. Go and do. And once you go and do, you'll figure out what's working, what's not. And sometimes, most of the time, 70% is good enough, and it'll get you a lot farther down the road than by thinking about it for another minute, hour, or day. We got this next one of participation in the Game of Thrones. I love where this name came from, because I don't even know if everybody's a Game of Thrones watcher, but can you kind of dial that in for us and give some context to that?
Judge, take that one.
Sure. So, the Game of Thrones was, a hit HBO series, and, it's every year it's getting more dated, but the idea of it is, in Game of Thrones, there was fiefdoms, right? And if everybody understands what a fiefdom is, it's their own group or their own gang that wants to control power, right? And nobody's getting along with the other fiefdoms. And so what you have in organizations specifically that are bigger and start to have scale is every clique is created, or every fiefdom starts to get created in these organizations. So a great example is the CEO thinks he or she is aligned with the executive team. They all have a meeting. They have a company meeting. And then he or she feels good about that meeting. And then the foot soldiers go away and they run to their manager and go, what the f just happened? Do we need to do that? And then he or she goes, no. Don't listen to he or she. This is what we're going to do. We've got to protect our little thing. Don't be working with sales right now because we're measured on this. And then everybody starts to collectively, internally create these fiefdoms, and nobody wins. I mean, that's why you see at these big organizations, 85% of people are walking zombies. They're anti-productive, right? Why is that? Because they have a shitty leader and shitty managers that are playing, participation in Game of Thrones. It is toxic. You will never scale or sell a company if you don't address this unity and alignment in anti-Game of Thrones.
There is no better example of this than the two political parties right now. They're the ultimate Game of Thrones.
They don't care about America. They only care about the party. Yep.
They care about their department or their party, and no one is making forward momentum. So if you just apply that example to your organization, and by the way, you know where this happens most? Is it truly happens in the sales side of his business where, and Judge gives the example of them going to the sales manager and the sales manager clamps down, but the sales manager might be the person who just delivered the message in the meeting. And then the salespeople go back out to the floor, and now there's two cubes that are talking amongst themselves against the sales manager. And that game of fiefdoms happens all the time. It happens in my organization from time to time as well. And think about it. The veteran sales guy gets the ear of the brand new sales guy on day one and says, listen to that manager. He don't listen to the owner. It's Monday. He'll forget by Tuesday what he just told us on Monday. Don't worry about it. And that first day, the guy goes home and says, honey, I'm not so sure it's the same opportunity that I thought it was, right? It seemed a little different after the guys got my ear. And you want to talk about culture impact and destroying culture? That's the easiest way to do it, is to allow a Game of Thrones to exist. It will kill your culture.
Chris, we have groups that are listeners of ours, and even within our own organization. There's managers, there's team leaders, there's people scaling and growing there. And then there are individual agents. You may be a part of an IMO, an insurance marketing organization, that has the opportunity for you to grow your own organization or be an entrepreneur with them. And there's direction and there's a synergy being created from the top. There's a message. And yet, oftentimes you'll see that there's sub-conversations and subtext of things that are happening saying, we like that, we don't like this, we like that, we don't like this. Don't do that, do this, do it my way, don't do it that way. These are all wedges. These are all wedges in creating this massive momentum that you guys are talking about. What is the best way to address and diffuse the fiefdom, the desire for the Game of Thrones?
Listen, good leaders lead. I'm going to repeat that. Good leaders lead. And what that means is if you have a well thought out plan and you are viciously accountable to communicating and talking about that plan every day with all the executive team or the managers, and you're creating purpose and you're holding people accountable and you're making decisions, there's no time to create fiefdoms. Okay? With clear communication, a crystal clear plan, dialed in culture, and daily purpose, and everybody aligned on what we're going to do to win today, there's no time to create fiefdoms, right? By compressing time, fiefdoms don't exist. We do horrible jobs as managers and leaders. Do people want to be led? They want purpose. They need to understand, what do I do to win today, and how are we measuring that so I can feel good? But we don't do that. So when you don't do that, what happens? Time. The longer it is, the worse it becomes, and the deeper the fiefdom happens.
Yeah. So you guys, and that is very well put. You guys see it more. You see it as an issue of a symptom of a lack of clarity. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's a good. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a one major aspect. I mean, if I was to bucket it, it's clarity, it's plan, it's accountability. Yeah. I mean, it's all of those things, and it's daily communication on how we're working as a team. I mean, it's use the example, the longer a problem festers, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
Okay. If you and I have tension and we don't address it, the longer we don't address it, the worse it gets. And that's the same with leaders. It's the same with companies. Right? I mean, you create your own idea of what success is, and it may not even be aligned at all with the organization, and you're just off doing shit that doesn't even matter. There's no measurement. It's just awful.
That was one take. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Chris. People ask Judge and I, like, what's the number one takeaway from Burn the Ships? And I appreciate both you and Roger framing up that there were a lot of big takeaways for you at Burn the Ships, but to me, there is one big takeaway, and I didn't do it for a lot of years in my business: crystal clear end game. And when the end game is crystal clear, I'm going to build a lifestyle business that's going to throw off X number of dollars a year for me as the owner and my partners, or I'm going to build it to sell. That clarity of the end game makes so much of what happens in a business immaterial, and it goes away. And the problem is most people don't have a crystal clear end game. They will spend more time planning the week at Disney than they will plan the life cycle of their business. It doesn't take a tremendous amount of time. It's a half a day holed up in a private space, a hotel room, a man cave, wherever it is that you can go and get a half a day for you to be crystal clear on what the hell we're doing this for. And so many of these things change. That is the number one bit of advice I would offer someone in business. Get the end game dialed. All right, this is the fifth of the seven is the organization leads with "we can't because." And this is certainly happens in the insurance business a lot as we have some generational people in insurance, right? Because it is a good business, a very good business. So you've got people who've been there a long time and they begin to tell the newcomers, yeah, we already tried that. That's not going to work. Yeah. It doesn't work in our business. We used to do direct mailer. It doesn't work anymore. Yeah, that email drip campaign, we never really figured that stuff out. Knocking on doors, it's not going to work. And so the organization begins to lead with the word no or negativity, and it crushes the new group who's coming into the organization and their ideas. Look, how many times do you have to hear no before you stop even bringing something to the table? Once? Twice? No one's going to bring an idea 10 times to the table if every time they bring it, they get told no. So when we can't because, followed by the no, it didn't work, it's not going to work, it's disastrous, especially for the younger group that's coming up and having a new flavor of how it could work.
Yeah, it's interesting when we measure the life cycle of an agent. Many times we see a high level of enthusiasm on the front end, and there's a lot of possibility. They see a lot of great things, and actually the production is starting to pop. And then they start getting tired. Their energy starts going down for a number of reasons from this conversation already, and their take on this starts to change, and there's this jadedness that starts to happen, and then their production starts to tank. And it's not until they can associate or get around people who see it from that same enthusiastic energy level where they really can take off. I could see where this really is an issue where you can, if it's not addressed or you aren't dealing with it, it's going to wipe you out.
John Gordon, a couple of years ago, wrote an article called "Optimism is a Competitive Advantage."
Yeah.
Optimism is a competitive advantage. I actually copied and pasted that into our organizational communication Slack this morning. Posted it in that channel. We have an inspiration channel, and we kind of put out content in there. And he talks about how there are pessimists, there are realists, and there are optimists. And usually, when we start a project or an initiative, we're in that optimist level, right? And then as soon as we start to face some adversity, we start to move into the realist level. And then when things aren't going well, and you never want to look inward and blame yourself, but we start looking for other areas or other people to blame for why things are not going well, then you become a pessimist and you begin leading with no. So what went from leading with yes, I can, goes from I don't know if I can, there's a lot of issues, to I don't think we can. And it's a trap. It's like it's a vortex. It's like a black hole of death to any type of initiative. And so when you guys had this one, we can't because, I'm like, we need to say yes and figure out how, even if we don't know how. And because so as an agency owner, as a life agent that's just getting started, or you may be a veteran, you are capable of more. Don't sell yourself short. You're buying your own BS. You are capable of more. Initiate on the idea, lead with yes, try to figure out how, and the results will come. I mean, these are all in alignment with each other, and they kind of support each other as they go.
Guys, we have two more of the seven deadlies here, and I know I keep saying this is my favorite one of the seven, but this one is really apropos for your audience, I think, which is the tolerance for mediocrity. Because one of the things I do see in the insurance business, because it's a good business, because it has recurring revenue, there is a tremendous level of mediocrity that sets in where that agent is now making enough, right, to do some of the things that they've wanted to do, whether that's trips or cars or homes or what have you. And then the organization begins to settle into mediocrity. And how do you move someone from mediocrity? It's by not having a tolerance for mediocrity. Mediocrity comes from having low standards. The people aren't required to achieve certain levels, and good enough becomes good enough. It's when, the guy or gal is toxic to the culture, but they're a pretty good producer. Hey, let's leave that guy alone. I know he could do 3 times the amount of business, but he's good enough. So he's good enough for a cube. So let's leave him around and
good enough for a cube.
Cause too much trouble for us. That's tolerance for mediocrity. And I can tell you that, and Judge is amazing when he talks about how great people want to work for great companies, and great people will not work for good companies. They require to be around greatness. And so if you tolerate mediocrity, you will get mediocrity. You will not get greatness amongst good.
That's you use the analogy. I mean, you look at, like, I'm a big college football guy, so people that can relate to that. Why is Clemson and Alabama and Ohio State always amazing? They don't accept mediocrity, right, dude? Like, you play there, you are a great player. And great players will only be around great coaches, et cetera, right? I mean, why do shitty schools lose? Because they got shitty players. I mean, it's pretty simple.
Chris here is a Michigan fan, so you didn't name Michigan. When you said Ohio State, he was just started bleeding.
Oh, I'm hurting. Ow.
But I mean, these are fundamental. If you really step back and you look at these, it should be block and tackle stuff. And for whatever reason, is business owners and managers, we let what Matt and I like to call that noise. You called it a vortex, and then you're sucked in and it's over. But you can get out, but you got to be relentless about it.
This one is, I'm telling you, Matt, you nailed it on the head. That is the mic drop with the agent who starts to make money and hits their comfort level, and they forgot what the heck they were fighting for in the first place. So if you are listening to this and you're leading a team, or you are a single agent, you are the CEO boss of your business. And sometimes you have to look in the mirror. You have to look in the mirror and say to the number one employee, which is you, am I getting the job done? Am I settling for mediocrity? Why am I doing that? Well, how did I get here? And evaluate and make a change.
It fascinates me. I've got a good buddy who's a goosehead insurance agent, and he's a pretty good producer, and he's got like 3 employees. And I'm like, what the f-? Like, I would have 175, 300, 1,000 employees. Like, everybody needs fucking insurance. Like, what are we doing here? Like, why do we have 4 employees? Like, you got a good product? Yeah. Do you deliver good service? Yeah. Can we build a good culture? Yeah. Do people need insurance? Yeah. What size is the market? Everyone. Let's go. Like, I don't get it.
Guys, I don't want to digress too much on it, but here's a real tactical takeaway for the audience. Using my primary business commercial mission statement, which sits on top of the 4 core values, is CFF exists to help ourselves and our clients reach full potential. Now, just think about that as the mission statement. CFF exists to help ourselves and our clients reach full potential. Do you think if that's the mission statement of the organization, we have any difficulty talking about mediocrity? It solves the problem. No. It instantly solves the problem. Hey, you did $100,000 last year. We think you could do 500. The mission is for us to help you reach your full potential. You cannot do 100 again this year. You have to do 200. And it solves this mediocrity nightmare that exists in so many businesses. It's because there's no cultural connection to improvement and doing better. That's mission statement solves this problem. This problem exists in every company.
That is awesome, man. That is awesome stuff. You guys, I hope maybe you're driving around listening. A lot of our listeners, they listen to the podcast on their way to the field to go sell. But I would encourage you, take some time to re-listen to this podcast and take some notes for you and your team, and start forming some of this language to clear out the noise.
You want to round out the last one here for us, Matt?
Yeah, we got one last one to go, and this exists everywhere. We refer to it as the failure to deliver. The real gritty way of saying this is, how do you blow somebody out, right? How do you get rid of these people that just aren't hitting their numbers? And the evidence of someone failing to deliver is they're not doing what they say they will. Now, there's a lot to unpack there, guys, because did you get them to agree that they would do something, right? Or did you just keep your fingers crossed and hope that they're going to do well? Or did you offer crystal clear expectations that they agreed to and understood and committed to? Well, great. If we miss, we got to coach them up a little bit. And if they miss again, you coach them up again. And then if they miss again, guess what? It's time to go. But the big thing to failure to deliver is what it does to the organization. You're hurting the organization because you, as a spoken hour wheel, not delivering on what the expectation was, what we agreed upon, and what you're capable of doing. And so failure to deliver, how do you blow underproducers out, is so much easier than most people make it out to be when we have crystal clear expectations, when we recognize that they've made the commitment to meet those expectations, and that it is a team game. There is a teamwork involved in it, and they're letting the team down every time they drop the ball.
Chris, I like your comment that you've had and conversation that you've had with many agents who do some coaching with you. It's like, well, that's the answer. The other side is you're going to get hungry enough. Can you explain that?
Yeah, we'll have an agent who may be, and like I said, these agents are 1099. They're their own boss. We do some support and some coaching for them, and they can't figure out why they're not making money. And we come back to that same issue, whether it's the activity or whether it's addressing objections before they come, whatever that is, whether it's not addressing or talking in BS, all that stuff. It generally comes back to the conversation of, well, I guess at some point you're going to get hungry enough, you're going to want to eat, and you're going to make a change and actually implement. That's going to be the thing.
Like, you're going to crash and burn, or you're going to go to work. And so let's not do it on our watch. Let's go out there and go to work, or do something else with your life. I mean, it's really that simple. It gets down to that simple. Guys, the foundational pieces for this were so powerful for us. Like I said, we came back and implemented them right away. I started reviewing your podcast. I've listened to a bunch of them. I've gone in and ordered some books. Matt, I haven't gotten into yours yet, but I want to take a minute here for our listeners, because I know you've both written several books, and the books that resonated the most, Matt, and I know the one that I think was your first book is You Need More Money. I think you have a new one now called True Grit or something like that, right?
The opposite. The Grit was the first book, and then You Need More Money was my second book.
And I didn't know one of them, I think was You Need More Money, was a very personal story. You were inspired because of a personal story, and that resonated with me. Can you share some context to that? Why that book, and what our listeners are going to get from that when they invest in buying that for themselves?
I think it's apropos to the audience today too, right? Being in insurance. My brother-in-law, John, passed away. He was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer at age 46. It's my wife's only brother, and you could not have had a better relationship than my wife and her brother had. I mean, they were just thick as thieves. It was a very emotional time for our family, but what made it worse was the money situation. My brother-in-law had no life insurance, no health insurance, and $100 in the bank with a wife and 4 kids at 46 years old. He thought he was going to the doctor to get a steroid shot, right? He was just going to feel better in a day or two and go back to work. And he got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So the book, You Need More Money, is, number one, a wake-up call on why we need more money. And then 2, the structural roadmap of how we actually go and get it. But as it relates to the insurance world, it's unbelievable how many people don't have insurance and even those that do have insurance don't have anywhere near enough insurance to actually make a difference. That's the insurance piece. There's a liquidity piece too. I mean, my wife and I covered all of my brother-in-law's family's bills in an effort to try to get him better. It didn't work. But those were the best checks we've ever been able to write, man. So this concept of I have enough is not enough. We need more money. And if it isn't to buy yourself those material things, maybe it's to put your niece into lessons. Maybe it's to help your brother-in-law's family because he was unprepared financially.
Yeah.
And that to me is an extremely powerful why. And that's the storyline of the book, You Need More Money. So, I mean, Roger, I appreciate you bringing it up and relating it to it, but everyone will be impacted in some way with a loved one who is probably financially unprepared. And the best hedge of all is insurance. There is no better way to hedge a person's lack of preparedness or lack of liquidity than with insurance.
Amen.
Every agent should be selling with a storyline, a personal story of how my cousin, my friend, they passed away and they weren't prepared, man. And insurance is, I just did a podcast on a You Need More Money podcast recently. I think insurance is the greatest hedge against brokenness on the planet.
Amen to that. Let's hear a
that was the drop mic.
There's the drop. There's the mic drop moment. Judge, we're going to come over to you for a minute because I've been consuming this book that I've got right here, Scale with Speed, and I want to highlight one thing in there. First of all, I know this is basically your life story, about why you're so passionate about this, and it encompasses everything we're talking about today and so much more. And in chapter 8 in there, you talk about the power of starting now. And this resonated with me about where we spend our time. And it's the 75-25 rule, I guess, that you refer to. Can you speak about that? And then just this book and what our listeners are going to get out of that. But I particularly wanted to dial into that 75-25 because I think for a lot of us in the insurance business, we get started out as an individual agent first. Sometimes we're captive, we're working for another organization, so we have a base plus commission, and then we kind of move through that. A lot of our listeners, however, are 1099. They're independent, so they can write business for whomever, and they're kind of running their own business. And then others are scaling their business. They're hiring agents, they're growing teams. And then we have agency managers and VPs of sales that listen, and they're trying to grow their business. This 75-25 rule resonated with me. Can you dial into that a little bit and then maybe expound a little more on the book?
Yeah, 100% of the time. And you're referring to the 75-25 as the decision-making process?
The 75-25 approach to, what we're doing, the money sheet, basically how it ties into the money sheet of your daily activity. What am I doing? Revenue generating activity.
Yeah.
That just, it was screaming off the page as I was reading through that.
Yeah. So in general, Matt and I have something called the money sheet, which is on Amazon. If anybody wants that, just type in money sheet. There we go. There's one right there. Look at it. But the issue fundamentally with most organizations is you, like Matt would say, you need more money, right? You need more revenue. And we get caught up every day in not doing shit that generates revenue, right? So if your day at a minimum isn't broken into 75% of your day on revenue generating activities, and then 25% on other things that are non-related to revenue but need to get done, right? It could be taking a meeting to get a new space. It could be firing somebody. It could be payroll, whatever it is. But those things don't generate money. But typically that metric flips. We spend 25% or less on shit that drives money that day and 75% on just noise. Okay, so if you don't start your day and go, what are the 6 to 8 things I'm going to do today that get me closer to generating incremental revenue, you're losing. You already lost. What's the thing? When you wake up and you make your bed, you've won. If you don't wake up and fill out your fucking money sheet, you lost. right? It's just that simple. What are the 6 to 8 things you're going to do today that should take at a minimum 75% of your time to move the ball forward, to move the dirt, to get to revenue? I mean, so that's the concept of 75-25. The money sheet is the tangible tool that allows you to make that happen. Scale with Speed is my first book, and it's the most probably tactical book you're ever going to read. I mean, it is just bop, 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 bop. Dude, so if you don't want a bunch of tactics, don't read my book. Speed is a formula. Start with your end game, pick your niche, energize your culture, execute with speed, and dominate your top priorities. And in that book, I frame out how to do all of that. The value is there. It is. Listen,
I was going to close with that, and you just close with that acronym. Nice. I'm like, can you close out with the acronym of what speed means? Because scaling with speed to me relates directly to those things. So if you didn't catch that, you need to go back and listen. But these guys have this dialed in, and it was highlighted, and there it is.
Oh, I love it, man. Listen, people undervalue speed. I firmly believe speed is the most critical thing to success in business. Now, you can't have haphazardly speed. That's why Matt and I believe you fundamentally have to have a culture, core values, a solid plan, a value proposition, market leader content, all the things we teach at Burn the Ships. But once you have that, speed is the non-equalizer. Speed is the difference of winning and losing and leapfrogging, right? So all the insurance agents sitting here scratching their head and, I've got 2 people, I can never get them right. I'm always having to fire them. Dude, get your freaking plan right. Get your house in order. Change your mindset. Build the shit you need to build, and then go fast.
Chris, I'm going to throw it over to you to close. But before we do, I know you guys got another Burn the Ships boot camp coming up in Dallas, Grapevine, here in a few weeks. What are the dates, and do you still have slots open, and how would people register for that?
It's December 10th and 11th. They can go to burntheships.com, click boot camp. They can learn everything. They can see real testimonials. Judge and I both appreciate you, Roger, and you, Chris, for your testimonials today. We're so thankful that the impact that it had. And it has that impact on just about everybody that comes. I mean, so many people in the speaking world told Judge and I, well, maybe you'll get through to like 5% of the audience or 10% of the audience will actually take what you've talked about. We have found it to be the exact opposite at Burn the Ships. It's like 90% of our audience takes what we talk about and goes and implements it, and 5 or 10 don't. So it's really impactful, powerful, and it's a day and a half purposefully. We go super hard the first day, and we're done by noon on Friday so everybody can get home to their families or back to their businesses to implement. We appreciate the opportunity for us to talk about it today.
And I'm sure that's not the only one they can register for. So if the December one doesn't line up with your calendar, because I know it's just in a few weeks from now, I'm sure there's a one coming up in the new year that you guys can participate in. And we highly recommend. I told some of our guys, we're going back, and I have other people in mind in our organization that we're going to take with us when we come back the next time. Yeah, definitely. Chris, over to you, man.
Guys, thank you so much for being on the Life Insurance Academy podcast. I know that there was a lot coming out to you as a listener of actionable content. And I'm telling you guys, if you can take some time, revisit this podcast and listen to it, there's gold in this podcast. Dig for it, take some notes and take action. Guys, our listeners, I'm sure they are jazzed. They're excited about what they've heard today. What are some ways that they can stay connected to you?
Burntheships.com, click the 4-part video series, put in your email, get the 4-part video series for free, and then they'll be in our ecosystem.
100% agree. Yep. Burntheships.com, hit that 4-part business series, drop your information in there, and we'll get you in our system.
Thank you so much for allowing us to share the Deadly 7 business habits on our show notes. And we will have a link there also on our show notes for your upcoming Burn the Ships event.
Sounds great. And we'll do an offer for your audience, Chris and Roger, that if they type in burntheships.com/offer, they can get it for 50% off. It's normally $4,000, and we'll do it for $2,000 if they go to burntheships.com/offer. and they can get a discount just for listening audience.
Holy cow.
Now there's a mic drop.
There is a
Yeah, listen, it's going to be the best $2,000 you've ever spent in business. So come December, you're going to be able to shoot automatic weapons with us, eat barbecue, smoke cigars, drink bourbon, and most importantly, we're going to get you freaking dialed in for 2021. It's been a crazy year. It's time to grow. It's time to quit playing small. It's time to go from checkers to chess and learn the language of business. We hope to see you. burntheships.com/offer. Make it happen.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thanks, listeners, for joining us. And we hope you pick us up again next week on the Life Insurance Academy podcast. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Well, that's a wrap for today's episode. And wow, those guys bring so much energy and give so many takeaways. We definitely recommend you to re-listen to this episode and check out their Deadly 7 Business Habits graphic that we have on the show notes page at liapodcast.org/EP43. That's liapodcast.org/EP43. And you'll see that graphic there, as well as links to get their books and their special offer to December's Burn the Ships Bootcamp. Now, our team came back with so many practical applications that have already had such an impact on our business, and we're sure it will radically impact yours as well. So just head to the show notes page for all that information and more, liapodcast.org/EP43. As always, thanks so much for listening to the Life Insurance Academy podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening, rate us 5 stars, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Life Insure Acad. The Life Insurance Academy podcast is hosted, edited, and mixed by me, Austin Lopes-Rivero. This episode was produced by Chris Ball. Our theme song is by Flashing Lights. We'll catch you on another episode. Until then, stay safe and go be a difference maker.